It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call shots. Aquaman does whatever Aquaman
does. Whatever, that's good.
I didn't know how to intro this. I couldn't think of anything. I could have just played Pitbull's rousing cover of Africa by Toto.
Is that a thing?
You didn't hear it in the movie?
Oh, I zoned out, dude. I swear to God I didn't hear it.
Todd. How am I supposed to? You know what? Let me just get that quote and put that on the poster. I zoned out. Todd Sturgill, Nerd Bourbon. Let's talk about Aquaman, Todd. If you guys have never listened to an episode of Shots before, what we do, this is our movie, film, TV, whatever, review kind of discussion podcast. And what we do is we sort of talk about the movie or whatever in question in a non-spoiler context. And then we give a clear spoiler warning. And then we talk about it unhinged and spoil the shit out of it. This time around, we're talking about Aquaman, the latest DC Cinematic Universe movie. Todd, what'd you think about it?
So, with all DC movies, I go in with low expectations.
As you should.
So I don't get hurt. With going in with low expectations, I enjoy the shit out of Aquaman, honestly. It's just it's a fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very fun movie to watch. So.
You know what? You say that, and I think I agree. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was really good in a lot of ways. I don't think I'm ever gonna watch it again. Like, I think I could live the rest of my life without ever watching this movie again.
I'm kind of on the same page with that. Like, I'm kind of good with a once and done.
So I don't really. I mean, I think it's good. I think it does a lot of things right. I think it does a lot of things well. But and I think it's pretty much. I think it's like pretty much as good an Aquaman movie as you could probably make. But it's also just kind of like, for me at least, and maybe this is like in a post Into the Spider-Verse world. Maybe it's me sort of. I try to leave
So a part of me wishes you saw Aquaman first.
I guess. I try to leave my biases at the door when I go to see any movie. I try to leave my expectations kind of. I try to come in with a blank slate as much as possible, and this was no different. But I mean, maybe there is a little bit of an inherent, like, you know, Wonder Woman is like one of my favorite superhero movies, and like I just got done seeing Into the Spider-Verse, so like maybe that, without me realizing it, kind of colored my opinion of Aquaman slightly. I mean, I liked it though. It was a good time. I mean, like, it's about as good an Aquaman movie as you could sort of expect. I think it's got some pretty major problems.
Oh, without a doubt. Which I'm assuming the major problems are more spoilerish.
Ish. I mean, I think I can sort of dance around it pretty effectively though. My big problem, or one of my big problems really, is the pacing of the film. Mm-hmm. I think is not great. I think it's like on one hand, it's trying to be sort of like this heartfelt story about like family and stuff like that, and about like kind of finding your place in the world. And then like, and I think it succeeds in that sometimes and fails at other times.
I think pacing has always been an issue with like the DC movies for the most part.
Yeah, well, it's sort of back and forth, because there are certain DC movies where it's like, with Suicide Squad, it was like just the editing was like so terrible, and like the character development, like the script, like everything about Suicide Squad was like bad. But like this is actually like just the pacing of like the narrative I found was very like, and it was kind of like really kind of back and forth with the pacing too, where it's like, oh, like, you know, Arthur's on this sort of like globe-trotting adventure, and then but let's pop back over to Atlantis and see like the politics. you know?
Yeah.
And that didn't really interest me too much. I even though I was having fun with some of the things. It just didn't know. The movie didn't know whether it wanted to be sort of a heartfelt story about sort of like, taking hold of your life and finding your place in the world, or if it wanted to be like a political movie, or like, is it trying to say something about us, like polluting the water and shit like that, or or is it trying to be like a fun kind of like balls to the wall, like, oh hell yeah, kind of like Indiana Jones kind of thing. It doesn't know what it wants to be, I don't think, in a lot of ways. But I think it succeeds more than it fails, though. I think the movie's like worth watching. I really like Jason Momoa. You can tell he's having a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Like it's nice to see him kind of come into his own with the role, and to sort of like take charge of it, and see him kind of like command the screen as a, I guess, a lead. It's and to see him sort of like not just be a side character is cool. Another big issue that I have is sort of spoilery, and I'm gonna dance around it just because I think it's worth mentioning. I'm not gonna spoil anything overtly. I'm gonna try to be careful here, but the way that Black Manta is handled in the movie, it's not a spoiler that he's in the movie. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows.
If you've seen the trailer, it's obvious.
I think it's kind of obvious that Black Manta is one of the villains in the movie, and like, look, I mean, I understand why they wanted to put him as well as like Ocean Master as those really are Aquaman's two biggest villains. And I understand why they wanted to have them in the movie, because it's sort of like it almost feels like this movie almost feels like if we only ever got to make one Aquaman movie. Yeah. Like, let's put it all in there. You know what I mean? And like, I respect that, but I mean, it has, it's got a lot of plates to spin because of that. It's got a lot of like, and so like something is going to fall to the wayside, and I feel like Black Manta is the thing that sort of fell to the wayside with this.
I had the same opinion. Like after I left the movie, I'm like, yeah, Black Manta wasn't really. He didn't really need to be in the movie.
Yeah, you could have completely removed him, I think.
Yeah.
And nothing would be different. And there's another thing with Black Manta that really sort of annoyed me that we'll talk about when we get into spoilers, but just his inclusion in the movie is totally just like whatever, and I'll circle back to that later. But things that I did like, again, I really like Jason Momoa. I'm blanking on the actress's name, but the actress that plays Mira.
What's her name? Amber.
Yeah,
Amber
that's
Heard.
it. Amber Heard. Yeah, I liked her a lot. I thought that she was great. I was not crazy about the way the costumes look in the movie. Like, I don't think the costumes really look very good. Like, it just looks a little goofy to me.
I kind of like it.
I mean, a lot of people, I know I'm in the minority with this, but like the costumes just look a little like, I don't know. The movie feels like, I'll say this. This movie feels like it's trying to be like a divorce from the sort of like Zack Snyder DC universe. Like, it feels like it's trying to be a bit of a course correction. It feels like it's trying to sort of like blaze its own trail.
Well, it seems like they're having a little more fun with it. Looks like, sort of thing, a little more goofy.
Well, they're trying to make it more fun, but even just like with the color palette, it's like it's not as like gray as like, as Man of Steel or Batman v Superman or anything. It's very colorful. I mean, like, these people are walking around in like bright blue, bright green, like Mira especially. She's got like a bright green like suit and like bright red hair, and like once you actually get underwater to Atlantis, like the visuals are very like stunning. There's a whole lot of like money on screen. It's very vibrant and colorful.
Whole lot of money on screen. I love it.
Well, it's just, you think about like all the money that must have been spent on like, I mean, most of the movie takes place underwater, and so like that's all that's one huge special effect. So, and the movie, spoilers, is like making its money back and then some. It's doing extremely well. Like, this movie's probably going to go on to make $1 billion at the box office, which is cool, I guess. I don't know. For me, like, I liked it a lot, but I'm also like kind of at this place where I'm like Like it does everything right for the most part. Like it's pretty much, like I said, the best Aquaman movie you can hope for. But I'm also just kind of like, I don't know. It's hard for me to feel invested in these DC movies when like they have fumbled the ball so thoroughly leading up to this point. Like it's hard for me that, like, you know, and it's not a spoiler, I don't think, to say that this movie does not do anything to feed into the larger DC universe, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a good thing ultimately that this movie is just its own thing.
Yeah, it's the kind of a standalone sort of thing, which is fine.
Yeah, and I think that moving forward, I hope that DC sort of sticks with this, where it's like, you know, they've got Shazam coming up next, and I hope that that's sort of its own thing. But at the same time, it's like, it feels so weird being a DC fan and watching these movies, because they've spent the past few years now trying to sort of copy what Marvel was doing.
And just miserably failing at it.
Yeah, and just like, just fumbling the ball in every, you know, conceivable arena. And then now we get to movies like Wonder Woman and like Aquaman and stuff where they feel more standalone. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, you know, it's a very weird feeling. And then, and you know, they've got the Joaquin Phoenix like standalone Joker movie coming out, and like it just feels weird. Like I just don't like it. And I kind of wish DC would just come out and just say, like, you know what, soft reboot. You know, like, we're doing a whole new take on this whole strategy. Like, we're keeping the parts that we liked. We like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. We like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. We're keeping all that stuff, and we're just sort of like, these are just standalone movies from now on. It's not going to be some big shared universe or whatever. You know, maybe Aquaman pops up in a Wonder Woman movie. Maybe this happens, maybe that happens. But it's not building.
We had this discussion, I think, recently.
Yeah, I think so. I think we talked about it on the main show recently.
Yeah.
But I hope that this is kind of I hope DC continues to make movies like this versus making, you know, trying to do what Marvel's been doing. You're never gonna sort of match that. Like, you're never gonna get to that place.
Unless DC does it right, which they're 10 years behind.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Just give up the ghost on that. Like, you know, just give it up. And like, they've already released like a Justice League movie and stuff like that. It's just weird. I'm weirded out by the whole thing. And
it's funny is we're talking about Aquaman here, but like, even with the Justice League movie, it's like they didn't want to shoot their whole load, so that we didn't get Darkseid. We got fucking Steppenwolf and shit. It's like,
yeah,
it's like part of me wishes they did shoot their load in the Darkseid.
Yeah, well, but you know, to bring things back to Aquaman, I liked Patrick Wilson as Orm, or Ocean Master. I thought he was pretty good. Yeah, I thought he totally. I really like Patrick Wilson as an actor. Like, it was funny because he's lost like a lot of weight and gotten into such good shape for the role that like, I was looking at him and the whole time I'm like, is that Patrick Wilson? I couldn't, because I always like him every time he pops up in a movie. I really like him in The Conjuring. I really like him in Watchmen.
Usually for me, every time I see him, I'm usually watching like a horror movie.
Yeah, he sort of plays that kind of slumpy, kind of nice guy, but in this, he's a very like militaristic, like sort of like you know, bloodline kind of based, like badass type of character. Yeah. And it's weird. It's a weird character to see him play. So I was actually just the whole time like looking at him like, is that him? And then like conversely, Willem Dafoe is in this movie playing Volko. Yep. And when Willem Dafoe's in a movie, he normally just like chews up the scenery. You know what I mean? And this is a kind of a subdued role, I think, for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Like he seems to really just sort of be. I mean, he plays like a pretty, you know, he's a major character, but he's not like, you know, they don't give him that much to do. I kind of wish Willem Dafoe had a bit of a bigger role, because I like him a lot. It was funny because Tamora Morrison is in this movie, and it was just funny, like telling Anastasia, I'm like that's Jango Fett, you know. And she's like, really? And it solidifies my opinion that if there's an old man Boba Fett movie.
Dude, it would work. It would fucking work.
Just bring him back. But no, performances across the board I thought were pretty good, and you know, despite my problems with the costumes, like some of it looks a little bit like there's that scene where it's sort of like Aquaman fighting Black Manta and Mira running away from the Atlantean guards, and it just, to me, it just looks like Power Rangers. You know what I mean?
See, this thing, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed how cheesy that shit looked.
I don't mind it looking cheesy or whatever, but it just sort of like, I wish if it took itself like a little less seriously. I think that the movie like toes the line.
Well, in a way, I feel like the design of it sometimes makes sense, because it's more like when they're wearing that shit, it's like it's like a diving suit because they're going above surface. They got like water in that shit.
I like that. Yeah, no, I like that aspect of it. I do like that aspect of it. But to me, like the it's more effective for me when there's a character, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a character who pops up who is sort of in this like sort of like deep sea, like unexplored space. And when this character pops up, the character has got this like kind of makeshift armor on that, to me, I'm like, oh wow, that looks really cool. Like that's the kind of, like, that didn't look ridiculous to me. That looked very much like how I would expect these people to look, you know? Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm like, that, I wish I saw more of that versus this sort of like colorful Power Rangers gear. and you know, I'm not trying to harp on that too much. It's a pretty minor complaint in the grand scheme of things. It just, to me, like, it just gels so poorly with what we know visually from these movies so far. And you know, they're treating this like it's a course correction, soft reboot. Fine, I'm cool with that. I welcome that. That's exactly what I want DC to be doing. But there's some stuff where I'm just kind of like, I look at it and I'm just kind of like, this just looks, to me, just looks a little silly and cheesy. And I'm fine with that in some respects, and I'm not fine with that in others. Again, the pacing of the movie doesn't really know exactly what it wants to be. And if you want to be a fun, like, cheesy Guardians of the Galaxy style, you know, cheesy nachos kind of movie, then fine. But you can't be bouncing around. You can't also be political. You can't also be like heartwarming family story. You know what I mean? Like, I really liked what this movie was, sort of the vibes this movie was going for when it starts. Like, when the movie starts and it takes place in like Maine, and like there's a H.P. Lovecraft book like on the table, and it's very like, kind of has like a, like it really did like look and feel like Maine. And I was like, wow, I really like this kind of like vibe. You don't see a lot of movies like set in this. It's kind of dreary a little bit. And then like it's completely juxtaposed once we get to Atlantis, you know, and we start learning about the sort of culture and stuff like that. In that way, this movie feels a little bit like the thing I was thinking of the whole time in terms of the world building that this movie does. The sort of like setting the stage for like Atlantis and like what all this means. In that way, to me, it almost feels like Star Wars a little bit. Like, I was getting strong Star Wars vibes from some of it. Like the political aspect, it kind of reminded me of the Star Wars prequels a little bit. Okay. Where the sort of thrust of the movie is like, you've got Aquaman on one hand who's trying to track down this trident and sort of reclaim the throne, right? That's not a spoiler, really. That's the broad plot of the movie. And then on the other hand, you've got Orm Oceanmaster, who is trying to sort of like, you know, gather up the Seven Kingdoms and wage war against the surface. That's the sort of broad strokes of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know, that to me, the time that we spend in Atlantis almost reads like I got the sense that they kind of took inspiration. It felt like they did a lot of like significant world building in an effective way to me that reminded me of Star Wars. So that's sort of my non-spoilery notes of the things that I liked about the movie. I liked the world building. I liked the actors. You know, I had my problems with Black Manta. I had my problems with the costumes. But overall, I had a lot of fun with this. I think it's good. I think it's a good step in the right direction for DC. I want to see DC do more of this, you know? I kind of hope that this movie signifies that DC kind of knows their place, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I hope that this movie is just DC kind of saying like, all right, we accept defeat. We're just gonna make good movies, and I hope that that's what DC does going forward. I just want them to make good movies, and I mean, look, it's paying off. Like, this movie ties in no way to their stupid shared universe, and it's gonna make $1 billion. There's no doubt about it. So I want to see more stuff like this. I'm looking forward to Shazam. I'm looking forward to the Wonder Woman sequel. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's time we talk about some spoilers. If you're ready to dive in, Todd.
Let's. I want to actually clear spoiler warning. Boom! Everybody get the hell out.
Yeah, clear spoiler warning. If you have not seen the movie, go see it. I think Todd and I are both giving it an endorsement. It's worth seeing, especially on the big screen. I think this movie really.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of money on screen there. It's beautiful.
I saw it. I saw it IMAX 3D.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful movie to look at in a lot of ways. So, go see it. It's good. But let's talk about spoilers. What's on your mind?
So what was your other issue with Black Manta?
I hated how in the beginning Arthur just decides to not help his dad.
See, it's dumb, but I see why they did it.
Why?
I know why they did it.
Justify it.
It's not. You can't really justify it. It's the whole bullshit. Like, it's because of a decision he made. He has a villain now.
That's stupid.
It's dumb. It is stupid, but I see why they did it. It's dumb, but I see why.
That whole scene just does not work, and like, it's not even just because like, oh, like Arthur Curry's like he decides not to help him because he killed innocent lives, blah, blah, blah. I don't even really take issue with that morally. I just think it's stupid that, like, that comes up, like, later in the movie, and he just sort of feels bad about it for 2 seconds and then brushes it off.
Yeah, it just moves on. Like, I think if they handled that as a whole better, it would have worked.
And then the scene itself just doesn't play very well either, because, like, you are told from the jump, because that's like the opening scene of the movie, basically. Yep. And you're told from the jump that, like, these are not good people. So how are you supposed to feel, like, sorrow for...
Yeah, how are you supposed to give a shit? Like, is that you just see them, like, killing everybody. You're just like, why?
Yeah, they're pirates.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
They're pirates. How am I supposed to have an emotional attachment to a pirate and his dad dying? And then also, it was really stupid how, like, he's drowning, but then also he pulls out a grenade. To, like,
well, that's just to end it. I think that's just to end it quick.
Yeah, that's what Anastasia was saying too, just to end it quick or whatever. And I get that, but it was also like he almost used it as like a way to like force.
Well, that also is to get his ass out of there, like, and so his ass can survive. But
just weird. I didn't like that.
Shout out to the really like cheesy montage of him like making the suit.
Yeah, that felt very like 2005.
I enjoyed it though. Like, the cheesy shit that the movie does, I'm on the opposite side. I love it. I love that shit.
I'm fine with it. I think there's a fine line where, like, there are movies like this that do that cheesy thing well, then there's movies like Venom who do it like not so well. But yeah, there's for me, like, for Black Manta specifically, if you're gonna put him in the movie, at least make him like a formidable foe. He gets his ass whooped.
Dude, I was saying that. I'm like, they made him a bitch.
They made him a total bitch, and like
but I understand that, to put him in here and like as a kind of like to world build it a little bit, and also because if Aquaman 2 exists, he's gonna be the main villain.
I mean, in theory, they have the post credit scene, but it's hard.
Yeah,
like it's hard to feel threatened by him when he just gets his ass whooped.
I know. Like, what is he gonna get? Like some super upgrades? Like,
I just want Aquaman. He just like throws the knife out. I'm like, okay, cool. You're just gonna get your ass beat. Like you have this entire movie. You're not threatening.
Yep.
They made him completely like non-threatening.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And like he's also just like totally flat. Like as a character, like the actor didn't really do anything for me. Like, I don't know his name, but he didn't really do anything. And even when the Atlanteans are like using him to sort of like stage shit, and they're like, here's your payment or whatever. He's like, I don't want payment, I just want Aquaman.
Yeah. That is probably the weakest performance out of the movie.
it's just a shame because Black Manta is such a cool villain.
Yeah.
And like, you know, if they follow like if they follow plot threads from the comics, Black Manta does some like really vile shit to Aquaman and stuff. And I just, you know, I hope that they make him, if there is a sequel, I hope that they make him a more formidable foe, but I almost wish they'd just cut him from this movie entirely. Mm-hmm. And again, it's like I said earlier, I think the reason that he's in this movie is just because, oh, it might be our only shot to make an Aquaman movie, let's get him in there. But, yeah, just didn't do it for me. If there was one thing I was expecting to like from this movie, it was him.
It was Black Manta. Yeah, well,
because I mean, look,
sorry for the disappointment.
It sucks, but I mean, look, the costume is like perfect. You know, they nailed the costume and stuff, and I just want to see like.
Speaking of costume, that's probably the best the classic suits probably looked. It could look on screen.
I don't like it.
I liked it.
I don't like it. I'm in the minority. I wish that they had just. Here's my thing.
Do you think they should have just kept the shit he wore in Justice League?
I think that, I don't, like, what's wrong with him just being, like, shirtless with, like, some armor?
I don't even know if, like, he really needs to keep wearing that shit, because he basically just took it off Buddy's corpse at the...
Well, it seems like if you wield the trident, you, like, get that armor. Like, it's...
Is that the deal?
Well, it seemed like it, because it seemed like it's sort of, like... fused onto him almost like as he kind of took the trident off.
Yeah, it looked like it just fell off the buddy, and like it was just sitting there on the floor.
It'd be a little weird though if he just sort of just like looted the corpse and like
just gotta like just
put on the new gear. Yeah, this gives me better strength stats. It's not. I don't know. I just
plus 1 to walk.
Yeah, +1 to animal handling. It just doesn't. That to me doesn't work. That I don't know. I just didn't think it looked good. Like again, all these, you know, if the whole point of Jason Momoa's Aquaman is let's make him this badass Samoan, like he even I think speaks like Samoan at the beginning, which never comes up again. Like I think he's like fighting some of those pirates. I think he like says something in Samoan as he like kicks their ass.
Some shit like that.
Which was cool. Like I was like, oh hell yeah, this is like a really cool take on the character. And then, like, he puts on that classic outfit, and I'm like, like, I respect it as fan service.
That's honestly, like, I don't think they need to go in, like, I don't think if they do an Aquaman 2, he doesn't need that suit, but I like seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, like...
That's my thing.
You know, for me, like, it was enough to just see it on Atlan, or whatever, to see him wearing it. That for me was, okay, well, there's the classic sort of, like, orange and... you know, gold and green suit or whatever. I just thought it looked a little bit goofy on Jason Momoa. I didn't. I did not buy it. He and I know I'm in the minority. A lot of people came in their pants when that happened, but for me it was definitely like it just didn't look. It just looked bad to me. Like I don't think that fits with his character. I don't think that fits with the kind of direction that the whole point of Jason Momoa's Aquaman is, let's take him and let's make him a badass. Let's sort of like legitimize Aquaman and let's give him this sort of tattooed, you know, Samoan sort of, you know, badass, you know, a lot of muscles and stuff like that, the long hair and the beard and stuff like that. And then, you know, let's just put him in the same shit that, you know, Aquaman's always worn.
Yeah,
it just felt like a total step back to me, and I hope that in Aquaman 2 they just ditch that altogether. I hope that was just a little.
I'm fine if they ditched it. It was just cool to see, and I can see where you're coming from. Like it was cool to just see it on Atlan,
right?
Like that's fine, but you know, I do want to talk about something. What did you think of that Julie Andrews cameo?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? I remember hearing that Julie Andrews did a role, but I'm trying to remember what that was.
Big old sea monster, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
I recognized. I was like, what the fuck?
I had read about it ahead of time, and I was like looking out for her, and yeah, once you hear the
were you voice,
like
looking out like did you actually see her?
Yeah,
like type of shit.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna. I thought she was gonna play.
That was your mistake.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna play somebody, you know. But yeah, the big sea monster, that whole scene, that was fine. That was
I like that scene for what it was.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Because I kind of his thing. I kind of knew it was gonna involve something with him being able to talk to shit.
Right.
I kind of because like shit. Because like what is it? Mira was all like, she was like, "How are you doing that?" I was like, "Oh, is that not a thing?"
It was so Anastasia and I were laughing so hard because they're doing those. The movie is peppered with flashbacks to Arthur's like childhood, and not even just the stuff with like his mom and dad, but also him.
But getting trained with by Vulko,
right? Getting trained by Vulko and stuff. And there's that scene where he's learning to sort of use the trident, and whoever they got to play like the teenage Arthur Curry, just I couldn't help but laugh. Like he was so bad. Like he not only was he a bad actor, but he also was like he looked like he was like cross-eyed. So like. So Anastasia and I are there just like trying our best not to laugh our asses off because he's just looking like angry and cross-eyed, and he's like, "My mother was executed," and just like, it was bad. And then they have that scene where he's like, and it's a total throwaway scene, but I liked it for what it was, where he's like a young kid and he's in the aquarium or whatever.
Oh yeah, that scene didn't need to be in there, but it was cool.
It was a little weird though, how like he at first seems like he's talking to them by accident or whatever. Like like he's getting bullied, so the shark sort of comes to his rescue, but then like the whole class is looking at him and he turns around like fucking Children of the Corn, like Damien the Omen or whatever. And he like looks back and like opens the yellow eyes and stuff like that, and I'm just like, so wait, do you already know you can like, do you already know that you have this power, or like, what's the deal there? Because you're acting like you do. You're acting like you're Billy Badass with like this whole menagerie of oceanic creatures behind you. But you seemed like it was just an accident just now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
that's nitpicky or whatever. I liked the movie. It was good. I liked it. It's a step in the right direction. I'm happy it exists. Again, I'll probably go the rest of my life without ever watching it again.
Like I might watch it again, like when it comes out on a DVD or whatever, or Blu-ray, whatever the fuck.
Right.
But I don't need to see it again.
Yeah, and I'll say this. There's that scene where he and Ocean Master are kind of doing the Ring of Fire, like fight to the death.
Yeah.
And Jason Momoa puts on this armor. I wish that he was just wearing armor like that.
You know what? You are not the only person I've seen to say that. Which I agree. Like, it looked good.
Like, why do we gotta have the bright? I understand you're trying to divorce yourself from the Zack Snyder, dark and gritty, but I think it would be cool to have him wearing like armor like that. And
you're not wrong. I think that sort of armor like fits Jason Momoa's Aquaman better,
right,
than the classic suit.
And then, moreover, when I saw him in that, it reminded me so much of the armor in like God of War, in the 2018 like God of War PS4 game.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I would not mind seeing Jason Momoa as Kratos. He actually would like be a pretty good Kratos. And I think he's actually gone on record as saying that he like wants to play Kratos. Like,
I wonder how they would do it, because like I know he would never shave his head.
You don't? Yeah, that would be tricky.
He would like I think he's gone out and say like he would never like shave his head.
Yeah, that would be tricky.
Because I think his wife would leave him.
I mean, if the money's right, but it's. As I was seeing that, I was like, damn, like Jason Momoa would make a good Kratos.
That's the thing. If they can do it in a way where they could like make it look good, like I think he would. I think you're right. He would make a good Kratos.
Because the other person that people sort of point to for Kratos is Batista. And I don't know. For me, he doesn't really. Batista has sort of a baby face, I think. I don't know. That's just me. I look at him and I sort of see like a little buff baby.
I'll say this, maybe.
I don't know.
Oh Lord.
But that's a tangent. Aquaman's good. I liked it. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. Just like with all DC movies, going there with your expectations a little low and just have a good time.
Yep. I don't know. I think that's about all I have to say on it. Do you want to add anything else?
That's about it.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you on the high seas. Hey there, thanks for checking out another fantastic Nerd Bourbon video. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, be sure to go ahead and subscribe, leave us a like, drop us a nice comment, or I guess a mean one if that's your prerogative. But until next time, get dunked on.